It was a warm, bright day in April of 2021. In my senior game design class, we get tasked with developing a game with 3 levels, an inventory system, 3 different types of enemies, the works. In 3 weeks. For a few years up until that point, I had been sitting on an idea for a rhythm RPG hybrid, a genre you don't see too often. I was originally inspired by the third Taiko no Tatsujin DS game, which featured an RPG mode with its main rhythm game as the battle system. The incredible gem of a game, Everhood, had also just dropped in March of 2021, so I saw it as a sign that it was time to unleash the idea I had. Originally titled Rhythm Rumble, this is what I had to show after 3 weeks. I was quite proud with the results, so when it came time to present to the class, I walked up to the front of the room thinking, I'm about to blow everyone's minds. And to my delight, everyone loved the presentation, and at long last, I thought I'd found my calling. Now it's 3.5 years later, and the game is about 25% done. Unfortunately, life happens, and 2/3 of that time I wasn't even working on Rhythm Realm due to personal matters to tend to, having a full-time job to worry about, not to mention the entire half-a-year-long side quest I took on, making the doors that led to nowhere. Besides that, I kept coming up with more and more ideas for Rhythm Realm, so my to-do list keeps getting longer and longer. Ah, Scope Creep, my old friend. You're always there for me at the drop of a hat. If you ever plan on starting an indie game, please don't do what I did and make some multiple hour-long, story-driven, single-player RPG game with too many characters, too many mechanics, too many maps with no budget.
That was like 8 burns in 1 sentence.
Alas, here I am with too many ideas for one developer to implement in a reasonable time. I'm probably going to focus on finishing the main story and locations and release the game first before worrying about any side quests or less important content I can release as free DLC. With that said, here's a look at everything I've done so far. As soon as you start a new game, you're dropped in and you can play. No drawn out cutscenes or tutorials. Here we are at this dark castle. Why are you here? We don't know yet. I'm a big fan of telling stories in media res, meaning to start the audience in the middle of the story and fill in the missing exposition through flashbacks, the environment, or other subtle ways. Part of the reason I like this type of storytelling is because I, and a lot of other gamers, have no patience and just want to play the game.
I didn't listen to any of the story though. I was kind of like, yeah, whatever. I like the
They talk way too much in that game. I don't have time for this shit. I want to play a game.
Why would the player care about the story of the game if they don't even know if they like the game yet? Granted, Rhythm Realm is pretty story driven, so my philosophy here is to hook the player in with the gameplay and exploration first before going in hard on the story. I did this with the doors that led to nowhere, although my execution had a lot to be desired. After exploring a bit through the castle, we come across our first enemies, Dino and Marino, a couple of goofy lizard men. These two will be that sort of Jesse and James joke antagonist duo that appears multiple times throughout the story. We enter the first battle with them, and here you get to see the bread and butter of the gameplay, the rhythm game portion. Pretty self-explanatory, the enemies come at you and you time your attacks with the music, and you're good to go. This battle system was pretty interesting to implement because I had never tried making a rhythm game before. How it works is, every frame, the combat manager script checks how far into the song you are, and if it's ready to spawn an enemy for its appropriate beat of the song. Instead of spawning an enemy on its beat, we need to spawn it a moment before its beat, so it has time to walk towards the player, so by the time it reaches the player can attack it on the beat. This is what the calculation looks like to determine when the enemy should spawn.
Okay.
Whether or not your attack lands is determined by a raycast with a pretty forgiving length, leaving a good amount of room for error. This would make it easy to cheese by spamming attacks without even needing to time it to the music, so to prevent that, I made it so you momentarily become dizzy for whiffing an attack. Originally, I also had it to where you stagger briefly after getting hit by an enemy, and you would attain a key item later in the game that prevents you from staggering. I decided, however, this was too annoying. It breaks your immersion and flow from the rhythm, and no other rhythm game prevents you from inputs after a missed beat. Imagine if you missed a beat in DDR and then the machine grappled your ankles for half a second. So I removed this mechanic because it was far too punishing. Anyways, we make quick work of Dino and Marino and move further into the castle. We come across this cool little music stand which acts as a save point. Save points are pretty frequent as you can't save anywhere else. It doesn't heal you though, I'm not that generous. Now that I mention it, I need to remember to change the save sound effect because it actually uses the same sound effect as a heal currently, which is misleading. Since you can't heal from saving, you need to rely on buying heals from various NPCs or from healing potions you can find frequently throughout the world. Healing potions can be used in battle and have a cooldown. Stronger healing potions have longer cooldowns. Anyways, we can examine some items in the room. The lizardmen really like spaghetti and meatballs. Spaghetti and meatballs are my favorite food. I've got a recipe posted on itch.io. It's a family secret, but it's too good to not share with the rest of the world. There's also a secret in this room, but I'm not telling you. In the next room, we come across the favorite cutscene of all my friends. This is a good time to talk about how I handle cutscenes. I tried using Unity timelines in the past. They're a little inconvenient in my opinion. How I ended up implementing cutscenes is by writing async methods for each cutscene, each method containing code that will move a character, play an animation, show dialogue, or do any action the cutscene needs to do. I feel like I have total control over the cutscene when using scripts, and it just feels easier to edit the cutscene for me in this way. I've thought about streamlining this even further by defining a serializable class that will let me make a cutscene object containing a list of different cutscene actions to perform. Similarly to how RPG Maker lets you create cutscenes by defining a list of actions. This would make it so I wouldn't need to write a new script for every single cutscene, and instead only need to make a new serializable object for each cutscene, and this would also allow me to make adjustments to the cutscene during testing. So back to these lizardmen. The lizardmen are very Mafia inspired. They'll break your legs if you're not careful. They're the main antagonist faction, and you'll see them throughout the world. Why did I make the main antagonist lizardmen? Well, I don't know, thought they were cool. After defeating this horde of lizardmen, you make your way to the end of the castle to meet the final boss. That's right, 5 minutes into the game and we're already at the final boss. The leader of the lizardmen, the super talented, knock your socks off ambidextrous Don Melodious. I'll let this fight speak for itself. Remember how I was talking about media ray and how I like to start stories off in the middle of the action?
I lied.
We flash back to RPG trope number 1, the sleepyhead rule. And here's where our journey begins properly. That's right, our main protagonist, Rhythm Jim, lives in a cave. You'll learn by talking to NPCs that he's the punching bag of your hometown Clef Village for being an orphan, foundling, and a mute. I made him mute because I wanted a valid reason for an RPG protagonist to actually be silent, and his muteness will come up in the story later on. We learn from the village mailman Nuntius, whose name is literally Latin for messenger, that we are scheduled to perform a song at the village amphitheater with our trusty guitar that transforms into a sword. You know, that thing that appears on the title screen, which is totally unexplained, but it looks cool. You can go directly to the amphitheater to progress the story, or, if you're like me, you can completely procrastinate on the story and go screw around exploring. If you get lost, you can press M to view your trusty map and read a reminder of your current objective. The bread and butter of this game is the optional areas, side quests, and overall potential to just get lost in the sauce while exploring. You can go the whole game without even knowing about some of these NPCs, but when you find them, you open up a whole new door of content. You'll see from wandering around the village that I took heavy inspiration from Roman architecture. A lot of characters and settings in this game are inspired by either Rome or Italy. One of the dungeons is based on the Leaning Tower of Pisa, but in this game it's called the Tower of Pizzicato, pizzicato being a technique for playing string instruments. Your love interest is named Apollonia, named after Michael Corleone's first wife in The Godfather, and everyone eats Italian food. It says salve, which is hello in Latin. There's a few reasons why I chose Italy as the inspiration. One, because I'm Italian. Only like 1/8 or something, but that's our little secret. Another big reason is because a lot of the items and power-ups in this game I named after musical terms, which all happen to be Italian. And also it occurred to me that not a lot of games are based on Italian folklore. Most games I've played take inspiration from Greek or Norse mythology, so I figured it'd be nice to mix it up a little bit. Back to the main story. If we go to the amphitheater for our performance, we trigger a 3-minute long cutscene, because everybody likes cutscenes for a game they've barely had time to get invested in, right?
Wrong!
Don't worry, it's skippable. We see that Don Melodius convinced the village chieftain that he wants to make peace and would like to hear a specific song called Ballad of the Ancients. You turn your sword back into its guitar form and go to work, kicking off some of my crummy animation. I'm not a believer in designing a game with a lot of downtime where the player is just not doing anything. Even though this cutscene is skippable, I've thought about adding a rhythm minigame where you can play along with the song. Something simple like Taiko no Tatsujin or the rhythm minigame from Night in the Woods. I'm not sure I want to implement this though because, one, it will increase the scope of the game more, take away from the attention of the cutscene itself, and it might be a little too overstimulating to have the cutscene play in the background while the minigame is going. Let me know in the comments if you think I should or shouldn't add this. After the cutscene, we get a big reveal. The main villain is the bad guy? What? Melodius gives everyone at the concert a curse. You wake up the next day and are greeted by a strange but familiar face. It's the flying squirrel-looking guy from the intro, the Basilisk, based off the Italian folklore creature of the same name. The Basilisk speaks in rhymes, which made his dialogue really difficult but insanely fun to write. He's sort of the Sans-like character who appears throughout the early game to help you, and is comedic but mysterious. He tells you the only way to lift the curse is by slaying Melodius himself. Achievement unlocked, MacGuffin acquired. And with that, your journey begins. Stay tuned for part 2, where we look at the next area of the game, the Flatlands, and I'll go over the plans for the world map as well as some more major gameplay mechanics, characters, and planned side quests. If you like what you see, wishlist the game on Steam and join my Discord for more updates. Links are in the description. Thanks for watching.